If there's one mantra I have with desire work, it's I'm willing to hear you. I'm willing to hear you. So that means that whatever's arising inside of us, I'm willing to hear it. You know, we all want other people to hear us, to understand us. And it's like the same for all of these things inside of us. But sometimes we are not willing to hear what's in there, right? So there's a development of the willingness to hear, and then a directing it towards these different parts of ourself. I'm willing to hear you. And then a tuning in of your ear, you know, of your sensing. Um, Often when we feel disconnected from desire, we might say, okay, I'm willing to hear. I can't hear anything. It just sounds empty. So the second thing I'll say is watch for the lights. And what I mean by that is like, look for where little things light up. Look for where there's a little bit of sensation in your body. This is actually where the genitals can be very helpful. If you have any connection to your genitals, just to notice, oh, how do my genitals feel around different things? And this is not just about sex, it's about a radar. So it's like, oh, do they light up a little? Do they buzz a little? Do they feel open? Do they feel happy? You know, what happens? And certainly we can have a really complicated relationship with our genitals, especially if there's trauma. And there's a way that you could just start noticing, like, okay, how do I feel? And maybe there's other body parts that do that for you. Maybe it's in your belly that helps you. But it might be like, oh, I see a flower and I feel a little brightness. Oh, I have a desire for flowers. It's one for me. I love going to the farmer's market and buying flowers and just noticing which ones light me up. You know, okay. So being willing to look, being willing to be curious. And I'm going to give you an exercise to do that this week. Now, that said, your desires don't need to make sense. We in this Western, what do you call it? White supremacy culture, we love things to make sense, to be really rational, really practical. We want it to be scientifically validated. And desire does not need to make sense. Sometimes it can just feel so irrational, so impractical, like, ugh, why are you coming up? Like I was mentioning with this client that I've worked with, he's like, why do I have to be going through this? Like, I know I want it, and why? And so it doesn't have to make sense. It does not, and we also don't have to leap to logistics to try to figure out how to make it work. Take time for your desire to cook. Take time for that intimacy. So notice if you want to rush to trying to make it practical, trying to make sense of it. And again, like, it's like when you're with your breath in mindfulness, you just start noticing it. It's subtle. It's like, oh, there's little sparkles, there's little nuances. Same thing with your desire. In this first stage, just start to really get to know it. Let it conflict with your identity. Have some non-spiritual desires. Have some bad desires. Have some taboo desires. Allow it to churn a little bit. And because it's not a commitment. Just because you have a desire does not mean you have to act on it. You always have choice. That's the beauty. You have choice. And you can get to know it. And you can get to know it and act on it and then change your mind and change direction. Or you can see it all the way through. And we're going to be talking about that too.